to lose a game while rushing for 200 yards, possessing the ball for 40 minutes or more, and having 0 turnovers.
Hmm.
Who was the quarterback of that Jets team?
That was in 2014.
Yeah.
Boy.
He's still playing.
Geno Smith?
Geno Smith is correct. The NFL's comeback player of the year. The guy who won that game in 2014 had one of the worst games of his career yesterday. And the guy who lost that game in 2014 had a tremendous game yesterday.
But what about the fact that and I watched that Panthers game, and I thought, on any given Sunday, one team can beat another, and a lot of people don't know this. They're not aware of this.
I feel like the reward for the Panthers fans is to have 2 other really good players shipped out in the next week.
Wait, so if they win a few more games, they won't get the first draft choice anymore.
Correct. Well, they're only like a game out of first place in the South because it's such a shitty division. They could actually go to the playoffs.
Yeah, so they're never gonna end up with the first draft choice. Almost by definition, it's not going to happen.
in like a draft that's got more good quarterbacks in it than they've had in 20 years or something.
See if they really had a bad, really just shit the bed, and suddenly there were like 37,000 people in the stands,
right,
and 25,000 empty, you would start to hear they're leaving Charlotte.
Well,
thing, get much bigger.
I was thinking of that before the win yesterday, because can you imagine like end of December and they're 5 and whatever, and then you're driving 90 minutes from here, and you're paying $50 to park, and you're paying $20 for the beer, and you're paying $10.
Not going to happen.
Jesus Christ, no, I'm not. I'm sorry. I mean, whoever they're playing, those fans will probably come out. But if it's like, hey, it's the Jaguars against the Pan, it could be dreadful.
Oh, there's your thing.
All right.
Now I'm going to have to look at the thing on the thing to see if the thing on the thing did the thing. Of course it did. Of course I didn't see it. Okay.
All right.
Here. Okay. All right. Hey, it's the Brad and Britt cast. First one for this week. Thanks for joining us. We're in the 1:30 Eastern hour on Monday as we speaketh to you. I have a list unless you got something burning. You got something burning?
I'm just going to go this may be on your list, but let's just toss this one out because it's always a good kind of amuse-bouche. Did you see Ted Cruz getting cursed out by the Yankees fans?
Oh, no, I just read the thing where he lied his ass off on The View. The hens went after him and said, Trump called your wife ugly. Your father helped assassinate J.F. Kennedy, and you called him the biggest lying piece of shit ever. Why are you such a suck up? And of course, Ted Cruz lied his way, through the answer because that's what he learned how to do in Harvard Law School. But I didn't see this. What happened? He was at Yankee Stadium. He went to the game.
Yeah, I guess since he was going to be on The View, he came like a day early to see the Houston Astros complete their sweep of the New York Yankees. in the American League Championship Series, and the Yankee fans were less than unkind. Many social media videos of them cursing at him, mentioning and referring to, hey, remember when Trump called your wife ugly? You didn't give a shit?
Yeah.
And they told him to go to Cancun. And, I really dislike the New York Yankees fans for a number of reasons. But God bless the Yankees fans. God bless the Bronx for coming down on this guy. He's jumping on a bandwagon anyway, wearing all his orange shit in Yankee Stadium for a team that everybody is universally hated. I think it's fair to say at this point, the Houston Astros, one of the most universally hated teams in all of sport. And this asshole shows up at Yankee Stadium, and the Yankee fans just pound him mercilessly. I love that story.
What better association could there be for him to have than they're not the black hats, but they are kind of they're the black hat bad guys,
right?
And he relishes the role. So that's America. That's America. But
that's some good shit. God bless you, Yankee fans, as you go into your off season.
Yeah. That's going to make a big difference in America, isn't it, Britt? It's going to change. Ted Cruz is going to change.
Just let him rock. I'll be rooting for the Phillies starting on Friday.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. The platform of bullshit.
Ooh.
I got your Social Security right here.
Ooh.
When people leave Guilford County, where do they move? Trump, the organization, not Trump, the human, is on trial today. Every time a vaccine proponent tests positive, a vaccine denier gets their wings of bullshit delight. Clarence Thomas, the most unqualified justice ever, is now officially the most corrupt justice ever.
Wow.
And America, land of the pissed.
Oh, land of the pissed. Well, you put a couple of them back to back that I think we can work with nicely there. Let's do every time a vaccine taker gets a disease, a vaccine denier gets their wings. Was that what you said?
Yeah. The head of the CDC, Rochelle Walensky, tested positive for COVID. She's fine, mild symptoms, standard story. You won't be surprised to find out that she is fully up to date on her vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she eats her own cooking, Britt, is what they used to say. And she's fine. But you realize every time someone like that at that level, like Fauci, right? He tested, a lot of people. Well, that's just proof that the vaccine is fake, that it was a hoax, that it doesn't work. Look who just tested positive. That's what they'll say. And then you say back, guess what? The vaccine has never been touted or advertised as 100% immunity from ever testing positive for COVID, but it is practically guaranteed to mitigate the problems that you will have when you get it, which proves to be true every time, works every time, but that doesn't matter because if you've been a vaccine denier, you must stick with that program, right? You cannot ever change. And to this day, when I see write-ups of stories like this, I haven't even dared to look at or didn't have the time to look at the Daily Mail write-up of Rochelle Walensky, head of the CDC, testing positive. There will be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds unanimously with not unanimously, there will be 1 out of 100 will come in and whack everybody, but they will all just say it never worked, it was a fraud, it was a fake, it was only designed to make Pfizer and Moderna and the companies billions of dollars. Everybody knows it never worked. Look at this. And just goes on and on and on. And here we are.
Isn't it weird that Republicans are kind of okay with the billions of dollars being made from insulin, but they're really upset that these people are making billions of dollars when it comes to this vaccine? It's very odd, isn't it? Very strange how we pick and choose how that situation is going about.
Well, there's got to be a more nuanced way. It's just not one or the other.
Yeah.
It's ignorance.
Yeah.
Let me think about this. The Inflation Reduction Act, a poorly named piece of legislation, doesn't.
But still a good piece of. It's a good piece of law. But yes, it's got bad branding.
As you are correct in saying, one of the best parts of it is the cap on insulin prices at $35 for a lot of people, and that would be a government intervention in the marketplace, right? And of course, Republicans, they hate that.
They hate that.
They just hate that. But in the case of the COVID vaccine, where there was even more government intervention because the government, through our tax dollars, paid to make it freely available to everybody all this time. And at the end of the year, that comes to an end. And when you get COVID vaccines in the future, they will not be just 100% free, where you just, go to CVS or Walgreens and you just get it. And you don't have to fill out any paperwork in terms of your insurance or anything else. It will become a regular vaccine. And Pfizer says, if I'm remembering correctly from over the weekend, the charge will be $130 for a COVID vaccine. The problem is now, since the Republicans, so many of them think it's a fake anyway, they probably don't care. And they probably think you're right. Whatever they can charge, that's okay. Because if you're stupid enough to pay it, and most of us, of course, won't be paying that out of pocket anyway. It'll be covered by our health insurance.
Correct.
Right? Like a flu shot.
Those of us that have health insurance, and of course, for years, the Republicans have tried to make it sure that everybody is not covered, right? By trying to kick the shit out of Obamacare. They're trying to make sure. But again, yes, continue on with what you were saying.
Britt, as you know, that's one of the reasons why there's such momentum towards Republicans right now in these closing weeks. Well, because they just have such good ideas that are going to make everyone's lives.
I just think that there is a large swath of America, again, can't assign a percentage. They think if they vote Republican, they're going to be paying $2 for gas again. And I don't know. Again, I can't say if it's this percentage, that percentage, or the other. I think that there's a certain number of people that think that.
There's no question about it. I need you to help me, though. What date will that happen? Will that be three?
Well,
will that be 3 months after the election, 6 months?
Look, it's going to take a long time to dig out from Joe Biden's bullshit. So don't expect it on day one. Okay.
You mean the Joe Biden gasoline price hikes?
That's correct. And when it comes to what we were talking about as far as the vaccine deniers and their protections, and again, the vaccine keeps you out of the hospital, out of the morgue. That's what it's designed to do.
Not good enough.
It is very much like saying that, oh, you wore your seatbelt and you still got in a wreck. What fucking good was it? Right? I mean, well, when I got in the wreck, I didn't die. I think that is the entire point. Some more horrible news for those people who are anti this vaccine. What we've learned through this, and this is the BioNTech guys, this is the Turkish immigrants who went to Germany and helped create this vaccine that Pfizer partnered with, and it's amazing technology. What we're learning over the COVID vaccine and what we're applying now, they're saying could have us with a targeted cancer vaccine using messenger mRNA technology by 2030. Now, some other scientists and medical folks have questioned that, but still, there is some hope there. And I'm very sorry to those of you that have fought this vaccine that apparently there's going to be at least a partial cure for cancer on the horizon. I'm very sorry.
I think that folks right now should sign a waiver. If you've not gotten the COVID vaccine, you will not be allowed to get any future cancer vaccines should they be developed, because you were too stupid right now.
Right.
We would like you to remain stupid and die of cancer. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's an amazing thing. I will continue on. And the last thing that I will say is now have you ventured over to our ex-friend Greg Hunter's USAWatchdog.com website lately?
I did last week. There was not a lot going on, but so I may be out of date on.
Well, it's just I think you're probably right on. He continues to insist a number, and he can't put a number on it. Thousands of people have been killed by this vaccine. it's thousands, and then many hundreds of thousands more, perhaps millions, have been permanently injured by this vaccine.
Where are these people? Where are they?
They're dead, and the government is covering up the statistics, Brad.
By the way, you know how that's provably not true? If it was true, there would already be trial lawyers. There would already be as many commercials on TV as
Camp
there
Lejeune.
are for Camp Lejeune. Did you drink the water? Okay. Did you take the vaccine and are you at death's door? Call this law firm right now. You are entitled to. Am I correct here? I think I am.
It just assumes again that a massive cover up, the likes of which we've never seen in the history of our government. I mean, the JFK assassination stuff seems like a plan to go get pizza at Chuck E. Cheese compared to this massive cover up.
How could there be if 3 people get sick at a Chipotle? Wait, at a Chipotle, which is what happened years ago, right? We knew about it in about an hour.
Within an instant.
And before you knew it, it was a chain-wide problem.
Correct.
And it really hurt Chipotle for, I think it's 12 months or so. And they fixed the problem. They came back. They're better than. So if there are thousands of vaccine victims, provably sick because they got vaccinated and for no other reason, right? There's a vaccine sickness, we would know about it. So
I would hope so. You started the segment by saying every time someone who takes the vaccine gets sick, a vaccine denier gets their wings. That would be a phrase that is associated with a movie we're going to be seeing a lot in the next few months. That's It's a Wonderful Life. The hero of It's a Wonderful Life was a gentleman named Clarence. There's an asshole named Clarence, though, that you also were referring to on your list. He is a justice with the United States Supreme Court, and he continues to be the most corrupt of all time, correct?
Yeah, nice little segue there.
Thank you.
Clarence Thomas has stepped in and said that Lindsey Graham does not, for now, have to testify down in Georgia. Of course, we know that he was a part of the plot on January 6th. And then afterwards, he's put a hold on any testimony from Lindsey Graham. The Georgia prosecutor's office had him out there for alleged interference in the election. Clarence Thomas handles the emergency requests that come out of Georgia. Has he handled the what the fuck happened to the Falcons, that request? Has he handled that one yet? No.
The Falcons are doing okay. You just watch it.
I was just trying to do comedy there. It didn't work.
Marcus Mariota's got to get this team straightened out. Don't you worry about it, pal.
All right. So this freezes the litigation while the other justices weigh the Lindsey Graham plea that the Supreme Court, I love this word, quash, a word that doesn't exist in the real world except in legal terms.
Legalese.
Yes, quash is just squash without the S in front of it, right?
Yeah.
Clarence Thomas had previously asked the lawyers for the Fulton County DA office to respond to Lindsey Graham's request by last Thursday. Thomas gets to handle it himself, but we will see. I predict that Clarence Thomas will be made to look like an idiot by the other members of the court. That's my prediction there.
I don't think you're wrong about that. And Lindsey Graham, being a lawyer himself, knows all of the tricks, all the ways and means, all of the end runs, everything else. I just think he's going to run out of space, right?
But it's not just that. It's that aside from the obvious corruption here with Clarence Thomas and his wife being way too far into the process, having texted back and forth with Mark Meadows around January 6th. And well, of course, now Clarence Thomas and his wife, they never discussed this. Business is business, personal is personal. So
yeah,
we can't assume anything.
We don't talk about that.
Right. But just the fact, this applies, of course, times a million with Trump. The fact that these people refuse to testify. usually that's what are you hiding? Why don't you want to tell the truth? If you're innocent, what do you have to fear of telling the truth? Are you so weak that you can't stand up? Lindsey Graham, as you said, a former military prosecutor himself, a guy who knows how to badger witnesses in front of the whole country in the U.S. Senate, that he couldn't stand up to these folks and turn it back around on them for their unfair, outrageous, horrendous attack on him and Donald. Why wouldn't you want to take that opportunity? And the answer is because you're guilty, because they got you, and because you are using the U.S. Constitution. Talk about hiding behind the Constitution. That's what they're doing.
Interesting.
That's what they are doing, which of course they accuse everyone else of doing that in other circumstances. But supporters, Republicans in general, doesn't bother them whatsoever that none of these people are willing to stand up and speak in front of panels and juries, and it's so obvious that they can't see it or they don't want to see it. All right, Lindsey Graham, but I think this won't last. If this follows the course of events that we've seen before, this will only be good for a couple days or so, and the rest of the court will smack it down and say that Lindsey Graham needs to testify. I think so.
Let's go to your local story, Guilford County. Some people who may be listening or watching out of where our area is. We live on opposite sides of Guilford County, which is pretty much smack dab in the middle of North Carolina, and it's now being called the Battery Belt. Did you realize that's the area that we now are living in?
Why? Because they're going to build car batteries here?
That is correct, sir. We are smack dab in the middle of the Battery Belt, as some smart-ass economic and business writers are calling it.
To learn more about migration patterns in the United States, a site called Stacker, 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 which used to be a porn site, but they went legit here.
I had no idea.
They compiled a list of where people from Guilford County are moving to using Census Bureau data. Well, that sounds pretty good. Mm-hmm. A lot of these are very obvious, but the interesting ones are the ones further away from here, because a lot of them are Buncombe County. That's Asheville. Mm-hmm. These are the top 30 places. We'll go from 30 to Suffolk County, New York. Okay, so that's the eastern part of Long Island, Hamptons, and all that stuff. Horry County, South Carolina.
Myrtle Beach.
Now here's one. I didn't even look up what city this is. Hendricks County, Indiana. Don't know what Hendricks.
I have no idea what's there.
DeKalb County, Georgia. Columbia County, Georgia. These are probably the big cities.
Outside of Atlanta, sure.
Yeah, outside of Atlanta. Iredell County, Broward County, Florida makes it. Gaston County, of course. Number 20, Queens County, New York. People moving to Queens. Then you get Cabarrus County, Rowan County. Number 17, Las Vegas, Clark County, Nevada.
There you go.
Collin County, Texas. I believe that's a Dallas suburb. Watauga County, which is north and west of us. Orange County. Yeah, Orange County, North Carolina, which
Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill. Cumberland County, North Carolina. Was that Fayetteville?
Fayetteville.
Yeah. Pitt County, North Carolina. Number 11, here you go. Maricopa County, Arizona. A lot of people moving out there to supervise the election process because they need people out there too.
Phoenix is a great place. Phoenix is a wonderful place to live, except, in the summertime.
Yeah, I would. I was doing some leaf raking this morning. I got this beautiful tree. I'm going to take a picture of this tree. I have one of the earliest shedding trees and color changing trees in our part of the world.
Wow.
Most of them haven't really changed here, but I've got one that does. I went out there and yelled at it last week, and suddenly I got mad at it. I'll show you. It's really nice. I'll bring it for tomorrow. And I listened while I was raking leaves to today's The Daily from the New York Times, and the whole segment was with the number one election official in Maricopa County, Arizona, and he described his life the last 2 years, because he got elected in 2020 as the shit was flying. Okay. And he's a Republican all the way. And of course, his life has been made a living hell ever since then, because no one believes him that it was legit and it was on the up and up. And if you'd like to hear just how sick, how ill the state of Arizona and Republicans in the state of Arizona are, check that out, the Daily from the New York Times.
Stephen Richer is the gentleman's name from Arizona.
You will be, it's worse than you think. It's worse than you think. All right, number 10, Durham County. Number 9, Shelby County, Tennessee. That would be Memphis.
Okay.
Memphis. Number 8, New Hanover County, North Carolina. That's Wilmington, right? Now we're getting to the top here. The top 7 places. Rockingham County, which is north of us, next
cheaper,
county up.
It's just cheaper taxes, I think people are moving up there for.
Right, and better pro sports there.
Of course.
Alamance County, North Carolina, which is Burlington, which is in between us and Chapel Hill.
Again, cheaper taxes.
Right. Number 5, Davidson County, North Carolina, also right on our border in our area. Number 4, Wake County, which is Raleigh.
Not cheaper taxes.
Not cheaper. Number 3, Mecklenburg County, Charlotte.
Also not cheaper taxes.
Right. Number 2, Randolph County, and number 1, Forsyth County, which is Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
But those out of town places are intriguing, because you do have a Florida in there. You have Las Vegas. You have several Texases. You have a Tennessee, and you have Maricopa County, Arizona. Not all that surprising, but sort of.
I always thought
I would have thought there would have been more Florida. But you know what? Maybe Florida has lost its luster.
Well, I know as far as, retirement was another generation's kind of dream, right? Retiring to Florida was a thing of your parents.
My
and
parents did it. My parents did. Absolutely. They spent the last 40 years of their life down in Florida after living, in Ohio, up north their whole life.
I always thought, now I visited Arizona because I was a huge baseball fan and loved spring training. And I did like it there for the time that I spent. And I always thought if I was a geezer, and by the way, geezer means about 3 months older than I am now. If I was deciding where to retire and I was deciding between Florida and Arizona, I might pick Arizona. But then
you pick either one. Now they're both off the.
You get awfully shooty down there in Arizona, don't you? Kind of shooty.
It's not just that. When you were a kid, and certainly when I was, it was the stereotype was, it gets 110, but it's a dry heat, and the air is beautiful, and if you have this was the thing. Remember this one? If you have allergies, that's where you want to go.
Exactly.
Remember that? Well, that's all gone, because the air is disgusting now in the whole Phoenix area. It's a mess. Probably Tucson also. But the spreading out of the city. I mean, that county is like 4 million people.
Yeah,
it's just enormous.
And if you look at those, if you don't know, the counties.
The word I was looking for was sprawl.
Well, the counties in Arizona are huge. I mean, compared to like the ones on the East Coast, they're at least 5, 6, maybe 7 of our counties in many cases.
Right, but this is the thing, and about all the water out there that there isn't in existence. No water. They're building developments now where there is no hope that there will be pipes laid to bring water in. So they're building developments now where it's already trucks of water, or you have to have a tank, because there isn't going to be the infrastructure. Because you can't depend on however Arizona gets its water, I guess they're on the Colorado River thing too. So so do you want to move somewhere where chances are, forget rationing gasoline or its expense, no water, suddenly gasoline not quite as important.
Yeah.
As water is. Why would you go there? I guess that would be the point.
No water, no people. It seems like.
I think they've lost. I think they've lost their thing. I mean, I would, I'm almost 70. My wife's almost 70. I mean, so what are we going to do? Right now, we have plans to go nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
We're not leaving here right now for.
There's never even been like an opening discussion of, hey, we want to move here. You guys have not even really kind of just entertained it just as a flight of fancy.
Not really.
Yeah.
No, not really right now. And as you know, America is in the grips of a housing crisis, and it isn't just. It's obviously very important that a lot of people don't have homes. There are homeless people all over the country.
Correct.
It is impossible financially for younger folks starting out to get starter homes. The phrase starter homes apparently does not exist anymore.
Forget it.
It's gone. Because they're not building them. The builders would rather build more expensive homes than the little cheapies anyway. So what does that mean? That means that there aren't enough new houses being built, and people like you and me who have mortgages that we have had for years and years and years at pretty low rates, we're not going anywhere. Why would I leave here?
Mm-mm.
Why would I leave here? I have a 3.25% 15-year mortgage that has about 2 years to go.
Oh, there you go.
I'm just about done. Why would I leave here and go somewhere and pay, a huge mortgage rate right now? What is it, 7 on a 30-year, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of locked in here theoretically. Not that we couldn't if we wanted, but why would we? But people of less means are definitely not going to move. So if people don't move, and people certainly don't move even out of smaller homes, they're willing to tolerate them because they've got low interest rates from the last decade or so. If they did come out not broke after the financial crisis and housing crisis of the Bush era, so it's frozen. It's frozen right now. It's a disaster. So where would we go? If you ask me on this list of all the places, where would we go if we were going to pick one? Wow, that would be a tough question. That would be a real tough question. My mind, Britt, has always been, I would really love to be in the middle of a good college town.
Oh, that's interesting.
And believe it or not, you know where I'm from. I'm from Columbus, Ohio.
Sure.
That is the largest college town
Mm-hmm.
In the country.
It's a huge city
That doesn't have, and I'm not counting the National Hockey League, that doesn't have pro football, pro basketball, or Major League Baseball. It is the largest of all the cities like that. Of course, they do have professional football. Ohio State. They pay their players better than probably a lot of teams. I understand. But I always thought Columbus was but I wouldn't even try to sell that one to my wife.
It's a huge town. Like when I think of a college town, I think of one that's not like a massive city.
It is the size of Charlotte, if not big.
It's like your Gainesvilles or your Athens, Georgia, something like that. Something kind of quaint-ish.
Yeah. But even those towns are bigger than you think.
They are.
They're bigger than you think. But Columbus, I always thought Columbus and Charlotte kind of grew up together under the radar of most of the country, and now everybody knows. Everybody knows about them.
Mm-hmm. Charlotte with the banking industry and Columbus with the insurance stuff in a big way.
And state government and the Ohio State University.
And the Ohio State University, huge employers.
And, of course, the home of Wendy's.
It does. It does make sense that we would transition from talking about retirement and such to the Social Security story that you have, Brad.
Well, I thought of this one the other day, and I guess we're doing personal shit here today. But 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week, they announced that they're going to increase the payouts to everybody that gets Social Security. That could be your mama. Mm-hmm. It probably is your mama.
It indeed is.
Or if you're younger than us, it could be your grandparents. or people who are on disability, all across the board, they're raising the payout 8.7% beginning in 2023. Now, you've been hearing this your whole life, so have I. There's going to be a point that they reach where the amount of money coming in forces the Social Security program to stop paying the rates that were promised. I believe it's 77% would be paid out in the year 2034. And they already backed that down by 1 year, back down to 2033. For those of you who don't have a calculator, that's 11 years from now.
Yeah.
Okay? Really, it's 10 years from now because we're in 2023.
2033. If somebody were only turning, say, 63 years old in that particular year, that would be interesting.
Right. So here's the here's the thing about that. That calculation was made over the summer before the cost of living, the COLA they call it, increase was announced of 8.7. So where they getting 8.7% more money to pay out of, they have to dip into however they do it actuarially, where they got money coming in, money going out. But that's a huge amount percentage wise to make an increase. So it seems to me, I could be wrong here, you're probably going to lop off another year, maybe, who knows, maybe 2 years closer to Armageddon, where they couldn't pay out all the money that is promised. They'd have to knock it down to 77% of promised benefits, unless changes are made in the way your paycheck gets garnished for Social Security payments. They're either going to have to
lift the cap,
increase the percentage that we all pay, lift the cap over which money isn't paid into Social Security. The magic number I've always heard was $400,000. If they would tax the first $400,000 of income that is made, so that would bring all the people who make in between about $130,000 and $400,000, that income would start to get taxed for Social Security. Right now, it's basically free. It's free, no Social Security. If they did that, that would extend the program decades out into the future. Or the worst idea of all, which is increase the age at which you can start to collect Social Security.
Hey, guess what they're going to do to us? They're going to increase the age. And by the way, they're probably going to start means testing too. It's going to happen at some point.
Right. Well,
those of us in Generation X have been bracing for it for a while now.
I'm not all against means testing, because somebody who does make $1 million a year shouldn't be getting any Social Security payment.
I agree.
It just, I understand the way it was started in 1935.
And I'm not either. I just wish they would go ahead and just say it.
But
they're going to tell us.
There are no political heroes. There's no one with the courage to say anything about anything. So we just keep slouching towards Gomorrah and Armageddon in this program. So, I'm one of these children of Social Security. Any of us who are under 90 are, right? And I'm at an interesting, because I just turned 67 yesterday, yesterday. So that puts me 3 years away from 70, which is when I would get the maximum amount if I wait. And it suddenly occurred to me, well, maybe because if the politicians do nothing, that 10 years from now, they're going to cut what goes out the door. Maybe I would be better off taking a slightly smaller amount right now for these 3 years instead of waiting until I'm 70, when I'm going to get a bigger payout, but that's going to get cut anyway. So you'd have to have a supercomputer to figure out exactly whether that's a good idea or not. But that's only for people like me in this age group. People who are 67, 68. We're not at our full, and very few people wait till they're 70 anyway. Very few people do, and I understand why. And I'm in a very advantageous position that I can wait. But isn't it when you think of all the bullshit that gets argued about in a political campaign, what we're seeing right now. And by the way, I believe my TV has run out of red pixels, because every time I turn it on, in giant red letters, the word liberal keeps appearing on my screen.
All over the place.
Can you believe it? Britt, it's as big as King Kong on my screen. The word liberal. Sherry Beasley, who apparently, you know what she does on weekends? She doesn't campaign. She goes around to prisons in North Carolina with a master key and unlocks it.
Does she?
And lets out prisoners. That's what she does.
Do they have depictions of these in the ads? The people that she's letting out?
No, but I'm sure there's probably a YouTube channel that plays the Willie Horton ad over and over again.
Yeah, I was kind of concerned about the shade of melatonin, melanin that was actually in the skin there. I just wondered how they would portray that in the ads and how that might be.
Yeah,
I'm just curious how that might go about.
Right.
Previously,
just let me finish the point. The point here is that everything at this point has become just absurd, emotional claptrap, and the sway towards Republicans in the polls and the conventional wisdom and NBC News that's moving towards the Republican. That's all there. You've seen it for the last week. That's because Americans suddenly they have put the idea of saving democracy on the back burner. They're not really worried about it. They're just worried about filling up their gas tank, food on the table, and crime. Oh, did you see someone got pushed onto the tracks on the subway again? More crime. It could happen to me. Wow, I gotta vote Republican.
As the guy was getting shoved onto the tracks, he said, "Thanks a lot, Biden." That's what I understand his final words were.
Thanks a lot, Biden.
Sherry Beasley. I understand Sherry Beasley's her previous sins, according to the ads, were that she was too much in favor of rich people. That was the previous charge that was leveled against her, correct?
There's not one thing that this woman hasn't done in her life that she shouldn't be ashamed of.
Have you gone out? Have you voted yet? Have you gone out and voted yet?
We're thinking of going maybe this afternoon.
Same here.
You know, last week they started early voting in North Carolina. Was it on Thursday and Friday?
Thursday and Friday.
And I thought, how could it be possible that when they started early voting on Thursday and Friday, that then on Saturday and Sunday there wouldn't be any?
Well, we had a couple of really big.
Go ahead.
We had a couple of real big football games.
Right.
We had a couple with that Duke Miami clash. They wanted to make. They knew that nobody would go to the polls. They'd want to watch that thing.
Right. But just think, what possessed?
I don't know. Well, you know, but the Republicans are always jacking with that thing. You know, they're always trying to carve this, that, and the third out of that thing, and you ended up with here's 2 days you can vote. Here's 2 days you can't. Start back on Monday.
Again, please check out the Republican head of election recorder out there in Maricopa County
for the Daily
on the Daily, because if I'm not incorrect here, the candidate for governor of Arizona, Kari Lake, she has promised, for instance, to get rid of all this mail-in voting, because we know that's where the corruption is.
No more mail-in voting.
I think Arizona is like one of those states where 90% of the votes are mail-in. Okay,
because they have some old people there, I hear.
Yeah, well, but it's a good idea, and it's worked well everywhere, and it has nothing to do with how old it just.
And during COVID, it became like a much more viable way for people to vote without killing each other.
Right, but COVID was a hoax, so I don't know why they made the change.
And then the reason Donald Trump didn't do well in mail-in votes is because he told his people not to do it. But never mind. We have time for let's do either Land of the Pissed or the Trump organization is on trial, not Trump the man.
Yeah, well, I think we kind of covered, Land of the Pissed.
Yeah.
In general here, the Trump organization is on trial today, and this is in New York State Supreme Court. They're starting to pick the jury here, and tell me if you think that there might be some liability here. They're going to try to determine whether the family business, the Trump organization, ran afoul of tax laws. Now, they always get nailed in civil court. This is a criminal trial. This is an actual, real criminal trial. The charges are that the executives, like that Weisselberg creep, got lucrative benefits, right? Wasn't that like paying for private school and cars and shit like that? And they didn't pay taxes on them. Essentially, this is the two sets of books problem. Two sets of books. Trump himself, believe it or not, sit down, not charged individually, nor are any members of his family individually. Of course not. You don't go after the children, Britt. That's just wrong. We don't go after children in this country, even if they're 46 years old.
Yeah, children. Even
unless their name is Biden, then we definitely go after them.
Unless it's your son and he does a mountain of coke every week. Well, I guess that would be Biden, wouldn't it? Huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Trump not charged, as we noted. Trump is calling the case. You ready? Sit down. A political witch hunt.
Hang on.
And that's what his lawyers are saying. So here's the punishment when they find the company guilty, and they will. They'll get a fine of about $1 million, maybe more, which is not a big deal for that company. But the suggestion, people are saying, I've been told that if there's a guilty verdict, the company will have difficulty doing business with banks and insurers, which you would think by now they already do have problems with banks and insurers, but this would cement that in. But the company has gone through this, you're right, I'm right, for years. And somehow, well, first of all, if Russia is your banker, what's the difference? Do you think they care? I'm just supposing here. And they're worried about jury selection. Of course you are. Associated Press says the potential jurors are going to be asked their feelings about Donald Trump and whether they can be neutral either way. So we'll see whether in the city of New York, which of course voted, I believe, about 80 to 20, maybe higher if you're talking about Manhattan. I think Manhattan was 90-10 for Biden. And I don't know whether they go outside of the borough of Manhattan when they're looking for a jury of Trump's peers, because he is from Queens, as you know. He's Don from Queens whenever he calls WFAN. Hello, it's Don from Queens. The Yankees suck.
Slightly more popular in New York City than Ted Cruz, but only slightly.
Yeah. So we'll see if usually you can find. I mean, this is not a murder case, so and it wasn't splashed all. There's nothing ever been written about Donald Trump to prejudice people, so no one has opinions about him ahead of time. So,
you've seen the situation from Bob Woodward now, where he's releasing these tapes in the Washington Post. What he calls tapes.
You know what? I didn't listen to them, but I read the whole article, and I'm really, really glad that he is doing this.
He's somewhat of a mea culpa for Bob Woodward too, because at the end of the Rage book, his conclusion was that Trump wasn't the man for the job, and Bob Woodward has come to the conclusion that, well, he wasn't quite harsh enough or quite emphatic enough that Donald Trump was an unparalleled danger. That is what he's calling him now. I've listened to some of the recordings, and yeah, it's petulant, it's ridiculous, it's anger, it's stupidity, it's prevarication. The man is incapable of telling the truth about anything. So everybody should go check that out at the Washington Post. And they do an AV presentation with it.
Yeah. As for Bob Woodward, it always sounds worse when you hear it than when you just read the cold words. Although I would work in reverse when you watch his rallies. And I didn't even realize there was one this weekend. So sadly, I missed the one in shithole Texas or wherever the fuck it was this weekend.
Shithole Texas, 27512. Sure.
Yeah, they got 240 counties in Texas, so I don't even know where that one is. But you saw the headlines over the weekend in the places where we read shit about Trump, where Um, and if you've watched any of his recent rallies, you know, he's got no new material, right?
No.
And this isn't like going to see the Eagles, where they're going to play their hits. You want to hear their hits. You love their hits, and their hits are great songs.
Mm-hmm.
Trump has played it out. Okay, his hits aren't great songs. They never actually were, and people pretend they want to hear whatever he's saying that's recycled pap. And then if he throws in something a little bit different, they have to pretend that they care about it, because remember, Trump is obsessed over all these kind of small detail issues that very often don't rise to the level of importance, certainly right now. And you're in the middle of shithole Texas. You're going out to see your hero late on a Saturday afternoon into to Saturday evening. You may have given up watching the Longhorns play Oklahoma. You've given it up to sit there and listen to him. So what does he talk about that I can guarantee you not one person in there who's a fan of Trump gave a shit about when it happened, and certainly isn't thinking about it now, especially in the world of crime, high gas prices, high food prices, and immigration problems. Texas is the place where you would talk about that. So what does he talk about? He talks about the crisis at the Supreme Court, where there was a leak 6 months ago.
That's correct.
At a time of the decision to overturn Roe versus Wade.
We got to find that leaker. We got to find him.
Britt, it is so important.
We got to find it.
That is the worst thing. And his solution was to grab the two reporters from the Politico, the website, who broke the story. They got Josh Gerstein was the guy you saw on TV all the time. He's the reporter. He's a damn good reporter. He got the story. He got somebody to, he took their confidence. They took his, and he broke the story. So Trump's solution all these months later to a problem that really isn't his problem to worry about or to care about, it really isn't that important. And as always, it isn't that the decision leaked out early. It's the fact that the decision was so shitty, that it was so wrong, that it took away rights that Americans had for 50 years, that women had for 50 years. That's the issue. It isn't that the fucking story leaked. Who fucking cares at this point? That's kind of an internal inside baseball thing now for the Supreme Court to fix, so that something like that doesn't happen again. But his solution is to grab Josh Gerstein, the Politico reporter, and threaten him with death. And if not with death, at least a long prison term where he will be raped in prison.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's
he
right.
will get fucked in the ass, and that will get him to talk and tell you who leaked the story to him. So the only way to stop a leak in the Supreme Court is to have Bubba leak something up the reporter's ass. That's what Donald Trump said to the people in Texas. That's what he was talking about the other night.
USA.
They did say that. They were screaming that. And then at another point, he was ruminating about something stupid, and suddenly people start singing the national anthem.
I saw that. Yeah.
So we are approaching. It's really interesting. This weekend, two dictators, one already in power and one who would be in power, were out there strutting their stuff. Trump down in Texas wants to be the dictator of the United States so he can be immune from prosecution from anything for at least 4 more years. He's figuring, if I can just do this 4 more years, I might be dead at the end of that anyway. They won't get me. I guess that's what the thinking is, right?
Your lips to God's ears.
Right. And then you have the newest forever dictator in China strutting his stuff and having his number 2 guy escorted out of the meeting, grabbed by the collar and told, you may leave the building now. You'll never hear this guy again. That's what dictators do. When someone threatens them, they have them taken away, like Saddam Hussein, that famous video. of people being grabbed out of the audience, never to be seen again when he did that.
Done.
That's President Xi, Donald Trump's friend, Donald Trump's chocolate cake eating at Mar-a-Lago friend.
He's nice
who
to
has
me.
now-
He's always been
he's
good to me.
always been good to me. He has essentially declared himself president for life, which has never happened, even in China, since Mao Zedong. And boy, what a great leader he was. He really did a lot of great things for China, and they now got another one. And so those two, there you go. So Trump has a real problem. He can't decide whether a better role model for him is President Xi in China or Vladimir Putin in Russia. That's got to be hard for him, Britt. And I think we need to consider that when we talk about him, because he's got a lot on his plate there. A lot.
Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. All right. I think we got it. We got the list here.
That's all we got.
Yeah. And Britt's going to now make his World Series prediction right now.
Definitely, there's no question. You should put all the money that you have in